Most men want to change their life quickly, and that's usually the reason they don't. Because the truth is, real improvement doesn't feel exciting at the start. It feels slow, it feels frustrating, and sometimes it feels like nothing is even happening. Hi, I'm John. I'm a dad of two boys, and I spend quite a lot of time thinking about life. You know, what actually matters, and how to build something that lasts. And one thing I keep coming back to is this: most of the things that actually improve your life don't happen quickly. They happen slowly, almost quietly. And then one day, you realize everything has changed. And this is something I definitely didn't understand when I was younger. Because when you're young, you want results. You want to feel different, look different, be further ahead as quickly as possible. You start something new. You feel motivated for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, and then, when nothing really changes, you lose interest. And you think, maybe this just isn't working. But the problem isn't that it's not working, it's that you expected it to work too fast. And that's where most men go wrong. Because real improvement works more like compounding. And it's a bit like money, actually. If you invest a small amount consistently over a long period of time, at first, it looks like nothing is happening. You check it after a week, nothing. After a month, still not much. And it's easy to think, what's the point? But if you keep going, something interesting happens. Over time, it starts to build. And then eventually, it starts to grow faster. And then faster again. And suddenly, what looked like nothing turns into something quite significant. And your life works in exactly the same way. Your habits, your health, your discipline, your mindset, they all compound, but only if you stick with them. And that's the part most people struggle with, because the beginning is the hardest part. It's slow, it's frustrating, and it's quite boring if I'm honest. There's no big reward, no dramatic change, no moment where everything suddenly clicks, just small, almost invisible progress. And that's why people quit. Not because it's too hard, but because it doesn't feel like it's working. I've done this myself more times than I'd like to admit. Start exercising. Go a few times. Don't see much difference? Stop. Try to eat better. Last a couple of weeks, fall back into old habits. Stop. Try to get more disciplined. Feel motivated for a bit, then drift, and stop. And every time, you end up back where you started. And over time, that becomes a pattern. You start believing, I'm just not very consistent. But that's not really true. You just didn't stay with it long enough to see the result, because the result comes later. And this is the part I really want my boys to understand early. If you can learn to stick with things, past that slow, frustrating beginning, you give yourself a massive advantage in life. Because most people don't. Most people quit right before things start to work. And that's the irony. The part that feels like nothing is happening is actually the most important part. It's where everything is being built, quietly. And then one day, you notice something. You feel a bit stronger, a bit clearer, a bit more in control. And it didn't come from one big moment. It came from all those small things you did when it didn't feel like it mattered. And that's compounding. It starts slow, but it doesn't stay slow. That's the key. It builds. And once it builds, it starts working in your favor. Things that used to feel difficult start to feel normal. Things that required effort start to feel automatic. And then, you're no longer trying to improve your life. You're just living it differently. And this applies to almost everything. Health. If you move a bit more each day, eat a bit better, sleep a bit better, it doesn't change much at first. But over months and years, it completely changes how you feel. Money. If you save a little, spend a bit more carefully, make slightly better decisions, it doesn't look impressive at the start. But over time, it gives you options. Freedom, peace of mind, discipline. If you just do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it, at first, it feels forced. But eventually, it becomes who you are. And that's the shift. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on habits. And habits are where real change happens. But only if you give them time. And this is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see. People underestimate how long things take and overestimate how much can happen quickly. They expect massive change in weeks and then get discouraged when it doesn't happen. But if you zoom out and look at a year, 2 years, 5 years, the difference can be huge, completely different life. And it all comes from small things done consistently. So if you're someone who feels like you're not where you want to be yet, that's okay. You don't need to fix everything at once. You don't need a complete life overhaul. You just need to start. And more importantly, you need to continue, even when it feels slow, even when it feels pointless, because that's where most people stop, and that's where the advantage is. If you can stay consistent through that phase, you move ahead without even realizing it. And if my boys ever watch this one day, this is something I really hope they understand early. You don't need to rush. You don't need to chase quick results. You don't need to constantly start over. Just pick a direction and keep moving in it, even if it's slow. Because slow progress is still progress. And over time, that slow progress turns into something powerful, something stable, something real. And that's how you build a good life. Not quickly, but properly. All right, that's what I've been thinking about. I'll see you in the next one.